So today we're going to dig into the story of a leader who was really forged in the fire. We're talking immense pressure, very public failure, and ultimately a powerful transformation. We're going to look at the Apostle Peter and how his biggest mistakes actually became the bedrock of his leadership. Let's dive right in.
So what really is a leader's greatest test? Is it about fighting off powerful enemies from the outside? Or is it about confronting the flaws you have deep down inside? Well, the story of Peter gives us a fascinating case study in answering that exact question.
Peter was called the Rock. He was supposed to be a foundational leader for this radical new movement. But that foundation, it was tested constantly. And not just by external forces trying to crush everything he was building, but by internal conflicts that honestly threatened to tear it all apart from the inside out.
Okay, so Peter's first big test was maybe his most visible one, a dangerous, head-on collision with the highest authorities of his day. This was a flat-out trial of pure courage.
Peter's public preaching and his ministry, they weren't just attracting followers, they were attracting some serious trouble. He was openly defying the same powerful council that had just condemned Jesus. So by keeping up his work, he was basically painting a giant target on his own back.
So when they drag him before the council and order him to be quiet, his response is so simple, so direct. We ought to obey God rather than men. Now that's not just a clever comeback. It was a declaration of where his ultimate loyalty was. It was just not up for negotiation. And believe me, the stakes just kept getting higher. First, he's imprisoned by the council. Then a whole new wave of persecution kicks off under King Herod, who actually executes another leader before arresting Peter. And right when things look their darkest, the story goes that a miraculous intervention secures his freedom. I mean, Peter was constantly living on the edge.
But, as intense as those external threats were, they might not have been his greatest trial. His next test wouldn't come from an enemy king or a powerful council. It was going to come from within himself.
I mean, what happens when the danger isn't a king, but it's your own fear of what your peers think? This brings us to a really pivotal and, frankly, kind of embarrassing moment for Peter in the city of Antioch.
The conflict was just so clear. Peter believed that the non-Jewish followers, the Gentiles, were absolute equals, and he ate with them to show solidarity. But when a more traditional group arrived from Jerusalem, he buckled. He withdrew out of fear of their judgment, and in doing so, he acted against his own core beliefs.
And oh, did he get called out for it, publicly. The Apostle Paul didn't just pull him aside for a quiet word. No way! He confronted him to the face, right there in front of everyone, because Peter's hypocrisy was causing a huge division. This was a devastating public rebuke, a real low point for a leader of his stature.
So, how does a leader even recover from that? A public failure, a direct accusation of hypocrisy from a peer. This is where the story pivots from failure to some real, genuine transformation.
This really is the fork in the road for any leader who gets called out. You can get bitter, you can get defensive, hold a grudge, or you can absorb the criticism, learn from it, and actually grow. Peter's choice right here is what truly defines his leadership in the long run.
And the proof of his growth? It comes years later. In one of his own letters, Peter writes about the very man who publicly shamed him, and he calls him our beloved brother Paul. Now, this isn't just forgiveness. It was a profound affirmation of Paul's wisdom. It shows incredible humility.
So what did this fully formed, tested, and transformed leader actually look like in the end? Well, his legacy was cemented not just by his courage, but by the wisdom he gained from his own failures.
The ultimate test came at the Jerusalem Council, this high-stakes meeting to decide the entire future of the movement. The main question was whether non-Jewish converts had to follow Jewish law. And Peter, having learned his lesson the hard way in Antioch, stood up and became the key advocate for unity based on grace, arguing against the very cultural divisions he once caved to.
And this statement from that council, wow, it's the culmination of his whole journey. We shall be saved even as they. He places everyone, Jew and Gentile, on the exact same level, under the same grace. The man who once separated himself out of fear was now the leading voice for radical inclusion.
So what does this whole journey teach us about leadership? Well, that true conviction matters way more than comfort. That vulnerability, the ability to be wrong and be corrected, that's actually a strength. And that building unity requires real humility, not just trying to be popular.
In the end, Peter's story really challenges our whole definition of a leader. It makes you ask,
Is greatness found in a lack of flaws? Or is it found in the humble, powerful, and transformative way a person responds to them?